We're all trying to understand whether what we're looking at here is a reality or simply just another blueprint that's going to get ripped up by a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle, and especially even among the Democrats themselves.
Well, as you may have heard at the end of yesterday, the progressives put out a statement saying they support both pieces of the Build Back Better agenda, which includes the infrastructure bill that was passed by the Senate already and the framework that the president announced. So it's just really a question of time. So
let's talk about that timeline. What do you think? If you were betting on this, when do you think you would get to a result? And do you really think it's going to look exactly as it looks today?
Well, I think it's going to look pretty close. I mean, the Progressive Caucus had a unanimous vote to support the framework last night. So that's a really great sign that this is going to go forward. You know, they're looking at the language, making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So it's just really is a question of making sure that they get assurances that the Senate is going to pass the framework and that it just gets the vote and moves over.
Right. One of the unique features of this bill is a particular tax credit around EVs for automakers, but specifically for automakers who have unionized employees who will effectively get a better deal than a Tesla, for example. Why does that make sense?
Well, what makes sense is pushing for workers to build cars where the workers have family-sustaining wages and the ability to unionize. And so this president, as you know, is very, very favorable toward organized labor, because organized labor has raised the standard of living of so many working Americans. And so we want to make sure that we do everything possible to encourage that business and labor really focus on elevating the standards for everyday Americans. He wants to address the wealth gap in this country. He wants to raise the middle class, as he keeps saying. He wants to have policy that builds the middle class from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down.
One of the questions I want to ask you about energy policy, and we're having this debate right now about the push for ESG and a lot of the climate goals, is you're watching the price of energy go up, 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 up. And some people are looking at that and saying that maybe we are either investing too slowly in moving towards a green future, or we're moving too fast in disinvesting away from fossil fuels, given where we are today. What do you make of that?
Here's what I make. I am so bullish on this economy growing around investing in this clean future, which is what this framework and the Build Back Better agenda is all about. We have to accelerate the diversification of our energy supplies. I mean, one of the reasons why we are seeing the high prices is because we haven't gone fast enough. We haven't put more alternatives onto the grid. We haven't put more technology into the vehicles to make it affordable for everybody. So we've got to continue to put our foot on the accelerator to build, build, build. We can't build clean energy fast enough. We have to double the size of our transmission grid. We have to add 3 times the amount of renewables onto that grid in order to meet the goal of a clean energy future. So that requires investment. That's why the tax credits associated with incentivizing the private sector to get off the sidelines on clean energy investment are so important in moving that forward. So I am totally bullish on this $23 trillion global market that will be there by 2030, and that the U.S. can really have a share of that instead of standing on the sidelines.
But, Madam Secretary, there is a question of the transition cost, and as we're watching inflation and costs around us, and we got WTI crude on the screen right now. It's at $83. You go try to fill up your car, and it costs a lot more than it did 12 months ago.
Yeah, of course. And you know the reasons why. You guys have talked about it. Obviously, demand was very low last year, so it's better to compare what 2019 was, but it's still high. And it doesn't alleviate the pain at the pump to say, it was 2019 is a better year to compare it to. It is clear that we have to look at this as a transition. It is not a switch that you flip on and off. So yes, we will still be relying on fossil fuels for several years going forward, and we have to make sure that people understand that the transition cannot hurt everyday citizens, which is why you have to build the positive side while we transition.